Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Catholic View for Women, where we give you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with my fabulous co-hosts, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, who is the Executive Director of the VITA Initiative, and of course, Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life, co-founder of the Silent No More Awareness Campaign, co-host of Defending Life. How do you fit that all on one business card?
I don't know.
To ask you on the last show.
Busy woman.
And we also want to say a big shout out to our wonderful pastoral director who keeps us in line and makes sure that we are theologically sound, which we always try to be in every episode here on Catholic View, and that would be our wonderful friend and pastoral director again, Father Frank Pavone from Priests for Life, who serves as a national director. This is a wonderful topic. It's a wonderful topic because a lot of people really don't understand what chastity means. They think of chastity and they think only of, for example, while remaining chaste before marriage, which is true. It's part of it. Right. Oh, and by the way, we do want to mention that viewer discretion is advised because we are going to be touching on some sensitive topics. But chastity is a way we live our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's whether married or unmarried, that's the way you deal in life. And the church really, in its wisdom, it's not a big no. And I think that's what happens out in the secular world. They make fun almost of people who are trying to be chaste, like, oh, yeah, that's because you're not allowed. It's everything about permission, not allowed and can't. But in fact, this is about bringing the true dignity of what it is to be a man in the eyes of God and a woman in the eyes of God, and not a big no, no, no. It's what God intended for us, to be pure and chaste. And even in marriage, there's times, of course, to engage in sexual activity, but all with a respect and love and deep love and commitment to each other.
Authentic love. And
authentic.
And I think that's true what you said about that. People think it's something negative. It's abstaining. In fact, the term abstinence is used. I personally prefer chastity because chastity is a positive virtue. And it's saying that the gift of sexuality is something beautiful. It's a source of happiness within marriage. It's sacred. God has a plan for you. And, to go outside of those bounds, you're actually cheating yourself. And in the culture where there's so much divorce, the prevalence of divorce, I think young people want something different, and they want to truly be happy. They want to live out their vocation. So chastity is the key to that happiness.
I have to say, did you ever hear the word chastity when you were growing up?
Not once. Yeah. I mean,
unfortunately.
But of course, I can think back when I was born in 1952, so I was a young girl.
I was born in 59.
All right, young girl in the 50s, everything was very chaste, basically. The TV programs, even the married couples like Donna Reed, My Three Sons, the parents slept in separate beds. There wasn't even one marital bed. It was separate little twin beds. Lucy and Desi Ball, they had separate beds, And it's so funny that they had their little son, baby Ricky, but they still had separate beds. So sex wasn't even discussed at all. Out in TV, in magazines, anywhere. It was just, everything was very clean. The fashion models, everything you can remember, Teresa, the fashion was very modest. It wasn't until the 60s when we started with the mini skirts and the micro mini skirts and the bikinis and all this stuff that women became more unclothed. Lingerie ads started perking in. You never saw lingerie ads in the 50s, but as you got into the female body got revealed more and more and more, and then of course it went all crazy with if you're don't love the one you're with, love whoever you're with, and all these kind of phrases of really sex, and then of course contraception crept in so that you can have sex and no babies, and then abortion right behind it, and so we really went down a dramatic slippery slope. But growing up as a child in the 50s in Brooklyn, I could say that we weren't really taught about chastity, but you just didn't do that.
Right, you were taught about abstinence. But you weren't talking about chastity. Well, I want to get to our video clip because it's quite good. Tell us about the young woman you interviewed, Janet.
Well, she's...
And also how you found out about what she did for a living, because it was just by chance. Of course, we don't believe in accidents, but there are no coincidences, only God's
the Holy Spirit kind of pushes people together. Again, I was at a conference with Teresa in the Archdiocese of Detroit. The conference, of course, was on a different topic, but there we were at a meal together, and her name is Chloe Morrill, and I could do it at any meal. Oh, so tell us, what do you do? And, she was saying, oh, I'm a chastity speaker. And right away, my little ears perk up. Oh, really? Tell me more. And so she did. And I said, well, I just happen to have my video camera with me. Would you like to do an interview for our program? And she said, well, I've never done that before. I said, come on. All I want you to do is talk into the camera and tell us how it is for a young girl your age to embrace chastity, and what are the struggles? So let's.
How old is she, by the way? Do you
She's
remember?
in her 20s.
In her 20s. Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
let's see what Chloe had to say about chastity.
I grew up in a very broken home. My mom often traveled for work, and then my dad struggled with alcoholism. And when they got married, my dad made a promise to my mom that he would stop drinking, but that didn't actually happen. So he continued to drink alcohol more and more as their marriage progressed. I came along, and then 8 years later, my brother and sister came along. They're twins. And it was just interesting to see that dynamic and how he really affected our family life, because alcoholism, it's like a mass casualty type of disease. So everyone's affected by this, and I very much was as well. I just didn't have that father figure that we all kind of desire in our heart for our dad in that way. And I encountered the Lord at a very young age. I was in adoration, just sitting in the presence of Jesus, and I really was just overwhelmed by the love of Jesus and the mercy of Jesus. And I decided to claim my faith more as I went into high school. Still lived a little bit of that double life, trying to live in the party scene and also be with the Lord. So as you can imagine, I had to sort of reclaim who I was as I grew and matured in my faith. And I decided to not date when I was in high school. This was just a decision that I had made by reading a book. It was a young Christian girl. It was her diary of sorts in this story. And she explained how she decided to not date while in high school, and this really affected her maturing of her faith. So I decided to do the same thing, not dating while in high school. And that just gave me so much freedom to really learn about masculinity, learn about the truth of how we're called to be treated as women, as girls. So growing into college, I knew I wanted to pick a college that would help me grow in my faith and not fall into the party scene, because I knew I would be tempted to fall into that more if I went to a college that was sort of centered on that type of lifestyle. So I chose to go to Franciscan University of Steubenville, and there I decided to study theology and catechetics. So I'm sort of living this life of, oh, well, I'm like too good for any sin of sort. And what happened is I learned that I wasn't. That's not the case. So I started dating a guy, and we were pretty serious. We loved each other. We shared that we loved each other. We were deciding to get married. It was this incredible story, and I thought it was just going to be like a forever thing. And the reality was, it wasn't, you know. We broke each other in a lot of ways. And that it was just crazy to see that, okay, here I was really claiming my faith, and yet we didn't love each other in the way that we were called to love, that authentic love that we're all drawn to, that we all desire in the depth of our heart. So we ended up sharing the gift of our sexuality. We had sex prior to marriage, and that broke us. That was the end. There was nowhere else to go at that point except for it being over. So, and that was really humbling too in and of itself, because we had to acknowledge that here we were at this prestigious school, at this really holy place, and yet sin very much entered into our relationship. So it was a matter of recognizing that God is merciful, that God is all loving, that, you know, we can seek this mercy in confession. And that's what I did. I ran to the confessional, and I remember just sitting there and realizing that our God is the God of second chances. Our God, you know, He wants to give himself completely to us, and we're called to give ourselves completely to him as well. And there's this line that I heard a few years back, and it sort of rang true after this confession, of how we are not defined by our own wounds, but defined by Christ's wounds. So we're called to let ourselves be sort of hidden in the Lord and his wounds versus our own. And that really struck me, because I think for so long it's easy to get caught up in our own brokenness, but we're not called to do that. We're called to live in the joy and the redemption of Christ. So for me, that was a matter of re-choosing chastity, re-choosing authentic love, and claiming that freedom in the Lord, claiming everything that he wants to offer us in this Catholic life, in this joyful life, this abundant life with Christ. So that's exactly what I did. I just decided that, you know, I'm not going to settle for any of the counterfeits. I'm not going to settle for anything less than everything. So that's what I did. Chose love. I would give some advice to anyone who's struggling in a relationship that is unchaste, just to know that it's okay to have fallen, know that it's okay to be broken, and to choose the Lord again, to choose his mercy, to accept his loving mercy. And I think it's just a matter of realizing that we can't be so hard on ourselves, because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes, but recognizing that the mistake isn't the end. The mistake is part of the journey. The journey is to heaven. The journey is with the Lord. So recognizing that he's always with us, that he's going to be our strength, our courage in those times of temptation. One of the big things that I realized when I was dating this guy in college was that he did not know my dignity, my worth as a woman, and that was very shocking to me. Like, how could you not know somebody's worth? But that's something that I very much look for in relationships is, do they respect me? Do they hold me to a standard of holiness? Do they really challenge me to be better, to be the best that I can be? Do they really love me? Do they really enjoy my company? I mean, that sounds really simple, but just coming down to how do they treat me as a person? And then so too that will transcend in how they treat me as a woman specifically, because we need different things, right, from men in general. So just how do they treat me as a woman? And then on top of that, I think you can go to people always say chivalry is dead, but it's not true. I mean, I know countless men that chivalry is definitely not dead. It's natural for them to open the door, to just be kind, to give you the best seat, to walk on the right side of the sidewalk. They just know these things. So have hope, trust that there are men out there who are good, who are ready, willing, and able to stand up and to be that man in your life.
Boy, I wish I had that kind of wisdom when I was her age.
I know, it's beautiful. But, you know, I think what's very important, a few points. First of all, she went to Franciscan University, a Catholic university, a very, you know, pro-life, as she said, holy
Orthodox
place.
school.
Orthodox
Right.
school, where she thought she was safe, okay? And then got caught up dating this one guy, thought she meant her knight in shining armor, and then temptation creeps in. You know, it's like, don't put yourself, as they say, like in the near occasion of sin, like maybe they were watching a movie, you know, in someone's home, you know, in a dorm place or something at night with lights low. You know, who knows what they were doing, but you put yourself in those situations, temptation will creep in. But then when she made her mistake, she didn't say, okay, well, forget this guy, let me go on to someone else. No, she put on the brakes. She went to confession. She went back to the mercy of Jesus. It was very important that she said, I knew God is merciful and I could start again. And now she's made a return to chastity and a vow of, okay, I can do this. And now I'm going to be more selective in finding a guy that respects her dignity. You know, she kind of like a new switch went on in her brain that it's not just about me being chaste, but the guy I'm dating has to be on that same level, the same bar as I am.
And she's worth it. And what's beautiful about the testimonies, she has her peace again.
Yes.
Like, she understands her dignity. Despite what happened in the past, she knows that she belongs to Christ, that he wants the best for her, and that those kind of men are out there. She's going to be the kind of woman that deserves that kind of a man that understands their dignity. That's so powerful for people who have gone through that path, to know that in Christ you can regain
Because
your
I think
peace.
sometimes they think, as you said, Janet, they go that way and then they automatically, well, then I have to continue my life
And you don't
on this
deserve
pattern. They don't
anything
deserve
better.
it. Yeah,
That's right,
it's
because they
beautiful.
think, oh, I sinned, I dirtied myself. No man will want me now, so I guess I have to just settle for less. But no, she reclaimed her chastity and said, no, I'm a daughter.
I'm a daughter of the
King.
King.
A merciful Lord who forgave me with that mercy, and I'm going to be strong, and now I'm going to be more selective with the guys I date, because they have to have that higher bar standard too.
I'm defined by his wounds and not mine.
That's
Amen.
right. That's right.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about reclaiming chastity and a little bit more about what chastity is about, but also some great resources that you can pass on. You're watching The Catholic View for Women. Teresa Tomeo, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, and Janet Morana on EWTN. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching The Catholic View for Women. In this episode, we're talking about choosing chastity, and we just saw a wonderful interview with a young woman who decided to reclaim her chastity as opposed to continuing down a very bad and damaging path, which I thought was quite powerful.
And one of the things that struck out for me in that testimony with Chloe is that she talked about, falling in love, being engaged. They were going to get married to this young man, and falling into this sin, which she lamented and actually ended up breaking them up. So the Catechism has such wisdom regarding the issue of chastity. So we recommend that we read that section. 2350 in particular. 2350 says the following: those who are engaged to marry are called to live chastity in continence. They should see this time as a testing, a discovery of mutual respect, an apprenticeship in fidelity, and the hope of receiving one another from God. They should reserve marriage, the expressions of affection that belong to married love. They will help each other grow in chastity. So in reality, engagement, of course, is a deepening in the love and appreciation, but also it's a preparation for the fidelity in marriage, because the temptation is not just before you're married. I'm a counselor, women that are pregnant, and I see the problem of infidelity. It's a plague in our society. So if your boyfriend, if your fiance is respecting you now, and you see that he's really practicing self-mastery, then that for you is an indication of how he would respond to temptation after you're married. How important, especially in our divorce culture, we want to strengthen marriage. So chastity is a way to authentically love.
But people don't think about chastity in terms of marriage. They think about it only in terms of single people.
Single people, that's right.
It's you're chaste your whole life. It's about authentically loving the other.
Well, and also too, and I know you counsel a lot of women with this too, Astrid, is when couples go for that National Family Planning, NFP training at these engagement. Well, part of NFP training is to be chaste within your marriage at certain times. And so therefore it's something that you do when you're younger, but then like you said, your whole life for a purpose, because like we always say, we're children of God and He wants the best for us.
But let's clarify, chastity actually is a virtue, and we are chaste in our thoughts and our body.
That's
I think you're referring to abstinence or continence, meaning not having sexual relations. And that's a little different, because chastity is actually a virtue, it's a positive virtue, and we're constantly having to work purity of thoughts and intentions. So it's something much broader than not having sex. Let's just clarify.
Well, and also too, when you think about chastity, like you just said, Astrid, that also, what are the magazines you buy or bring into your home?
Exactly.
What are TV programs
do you watch?
Music. What music do you listen to?
And then now with all the devices, cell phones, iPads, what websites do you go visit? And imagery. And I'm not just talking about hardcore pornography. I'm just talking about near occasion of sin temptation, women and men scantily clothed, all kinds of suggestive things. I mean, you don't have to go too far. I mean, you could just be tempted or have problems. Just the newsstand is littered.
Just driving
the supermarket,
and the billboards.
When you're checking out in the supermarket.
Checking out the supermarket, those magazines that are right there. So we really...
I don't want to interrupt you, but just a funny story came to mind with the 50 Shades of Grey. I went through our local supermarket. Well, first off, I talked to the manager, and I went back the next week, and they weren't out yet, and he said he was going to address it and whatnot. So I took the books and I turned them around and I hid them in the back of I said, nobody's going to find these books. And I stood there for like 10 minutes and nobody wanted. I just rearranged them and shoved them in the back. So all the children that go by there,
I know.
First of all, I mean, it's ridiculous.
They put it at eye level. They know what they're doing to hook up these children early.
And that's what you say. It's a virtue that we have to bring to our prayer life, that we have to pray for the gift of chastity. It's a constant struggle of really monitoring what our eyes, ears, see and hear. It really is, constantly.
And we need support, because in a culture where we have this tidal wave of information, contrary to chastity, we have to be proactive. And I think it's the people that you hang around with too, the conversations, what you read, all of that. And we have these wonderful apostolates in the church that are meant to train us, to teach us, to support us. And now with technology, you can subscribe to, for example, the Chastity Project or the Culture Project on Facebook. And every day you're going to get a beautiful, inspirational quote, to keep you fortified in your virtue. And it's just a matter of how you choose to live your life. You can be chaste in our society with God's grace and the support of the church.
And in terms of marriage, the whole idea of chastity ties in directly to the church's teaching on artificial contraception, because if you accept artificial contraception, your mind frame is different toward your spouse, because you begin to look at that person as an object.
Right. And, I mean, all this contraception does is really objectify
Yes.
women.
Both people, not just the women.
Men and
Yeah,
women.
yeah.
Well, I
You
thought
wanted to read another quote.
Yeah, another
right?
quote from the Catechism, which, by the way, when we get to homework later, we're going to have a whole big section for everyone to study. But here's another good one.
There will be a test.
There
Just
will be a
kidding.
test, a review, yes. A quiz, pop quiz.
Okay.
Anyway, this is from the Catechism number 2339, and it says the following. Chastity includes an apprenticeship in self-mastery, which is a training in human freedom. The alternative is clear. Either man governs his passions and finds peace, or he lets himself be dominated by them and becomes unhappy. Man's dignity therefore requires him to act out of conscious and free choice as moved and drawn in a personal way from within, and not by blind impulses in himself or by mere external constraint. Man gains such dignity when, ridding himself of all slavery to the passions, he presses forward to his goal by freely choosing what is good, and by his diligence and skill, effectively secures for himself the means suited to this
That is
end.
a great quote.
That is beautiful.
Notice the words. I mean, I like some of these words where it says freedom. You're training yourself in human freedom. So in other words, to be chaste and to have a chaste life, it's not restrictive. It's not a big no, like everyone tries to poo-poo it and make it.
No, because it's actually, if you go in the opposite direction, as we heard from Chloe, you're leading yourself down a path to where you're going to be really imprisoned, and you're going to be
Slave to the passions.
slave to your passions. And I like the phrase. Read the sentence about the impulses, not
Okay, hold
following
on.
your impulses,
I need the
because that was
glasses
really, I think,
on.
profound.
All right, let me find the impulses. Where is that? Personal way within. Oh yeah, here we go. Man's dignity therefore requires him to act out of conscious and free choice. See, as moved by and drawn in a personal way from within, and not by blind impulses in himself or a mere external constraint.
Blind impulses, and that's what so many people are reacting to, because
Yes.
they've been so indoctrinated with the culture, and they think, well, this is the only
Right.
thing.
And if you don't
left.
own yourself, how can you give yourself
Exactly.
in marriage fully?
Well, and you know, sometimes too, you know, and especially this has to do with young people, especially I'm sure like with Chloe, they're in college campuses, and you say, oh, this is gonna be a party at the frat house Friday night, and but they're a beautiful frat. They're, you know, you're on Steubenville campus, like we said, a very Orthodox Catholic campus. You think it's safe, go to a frat party. Well, they're serving alcohol, and now you're gonna have one drink, and then you have another drink, and then another. Well, what do you think has happened now to your defenses? Right? You mix alcohol in the mix, your defenses go down, down, down. And therefore, maybe if you didn't have a drink at all, you wouldn't have gone into that back room with that boy to kiss or whatever. But now that you've had a drink or two, your defenses go down. So sometimes you have to say to yourself, I'm not going to put myself in the situation where I would go down this way. And I always say, you know, pretend like, you know, you have the good angel and the bad angel here, or Jesus is watching over you, or Blessed Mother is looking, like the nuns used to tell
Or
us.
as my mother used to say, the Blessed Mother is watching
It's
you.
watching you.
Let's give our homework, because we only have about 3 minutes left, and I want to go
Okay.
over these really, really good resources we have for our
Okay,
viewers.
well, we have a lot of
course.
homework, so get out your paper and pens and start writing. The first is, please read the Catechism, which of course is available in the religious catalog here at EWTN, and especially the numbers 2337 all the way up to 2359. Full, we just gave you a tease here on a few of the quotes. The second one, of course, is the DVD series from Augustine Institute, and that's the Beloved series. Teresa, I know you were a part of that whole
Yes, I
series.
was. They interviewed me about my reversion to the church and the healing of our marriage. But this is a great program, and it really dives into this whole topic of chastity, as you were explaining, the full meaning of chastity, and not as it just relates to sexuality in terms of sexual activity. It's beautifully done, very, very, very highly, and produced in a very slick manner. It's absolutely beautiful. There's testimonies from couples, testimonies from individuals, and there's teaching on marriage and chastity and what those two things mean. So that's
Right.
from the Augustine Institute.
Okay, and then number 3 is we want you to visit the Culture Project, their website, which is restoreculture.com. And of course,
Christina
Astrid,
Barbara and her team are fantastic. They teach not only young people, parents as well. Parents are the first teachers of this virtue. So you can book a speaker for your diocese, for your parish, and their website itself and their social media is fantastic
Right.
for support.
Okay, and number 4, another great place to visit is Jason and Crystalina's
Everett's right,
website, which is chastityproject.com. And of course, I know Jason Everett has some great resources also in the religious catalog here at EWTN. EWTN.
Yes.
And finally and quickly, Astrid,
Number 5.
FloraZonePuro.org.
They are in New York, but they're actually going all over the world. A wonderful ministry. Being chased in New York City, talk about the toughest place to be chased, but they're doing it. So that's a wonderful place to also get resources and speakers.
All right, and all these resources will be on our website again at thecatholicviewforwomen.com. On behalf of our pastoral director, Father Frank Pavone, and the anchor team here at the Catholic View desk, myself, Teresa Tomeo, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, and Janet Morana, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Catholic View for Women. Enjoy The Catholic View. Take care.